Good morning, YouTube friends. Thanks so much for coming by and welcome to another episode of The Untamed Olive. It is almost Thanksgiving and I'm here to show you some really simple and healthy vegan side item options. Keep on watching to see how to make them. Okie dokie guys, first things first, we're going to start on our gluten-free stuffing. I have got about 7 pieces of gluten-free bread here that I'm going to cube up and dry out in our oven with some olive oil and herbs and spices to make extra delicious. This step isn't necessarily necessary, if that makes sense. You can use the boxed stuffing or the cubes of bread that you can get at the grocery store. I just like doing this because I can control the flavor and I can also control exactly what ingredients go into my stuffing. And the boxed stuff is great if you want to add things to it. Like I said, just be careful with the boxed things. How many times could I say box stuffing here? Be careful because a lot of those pre-made like stovetop and things like that, while they're delicious, they sometimes have hidden chicken or turkey stock in them. So just read your ingredients if that's a concern for you. Now that we're all cubed up here, I'm just gonna pour on about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and our seasoning mixture, which is salt, pepper, thyme, a little bit of rosemary, and a little dash of sage. I will, of course, link in the description box below exactly what I'm using. I'm being very technical here and mixing with a knife. Just gonna sprinkle it on and toss everything together. Throw it in the oven at 300 degrees for about a half an hour, and we'll have some really delicious crouton-like dried out breadcrumbs that we can assemble our stuffing with. Okay, while our bread cubes are drying out in the oven, I'm going to get the rest of this stuffing going on the stovetop here. I've got a tablespoon of olive oil in a medium fry pan. Medium heat as well. I'm going to add equal parts of carrot, celery, and onion, just cut up pretty small. And then I'm going to saute those until they start to soften a little bit and our onions are translucent. Once everything's a bit softened, and you can also tell the celery will get a little bit more bright green, we're ready to add our mushrooms. I've got about a cup of chopped mushrooms, chopped pretty finely. So the ratio here is a cup of each. It's really easy to remember, and there's really no way to mess it up. All these flavors go super well together. I remember watching in some cooking show way back when, I believe this is the trinity of veggies to start a stock with or something along those lines. But these flavors just go magically together, so you're not going to mess it up no matter what you do. I also added in a clove of garlic with that onion, and I think I'm just trying to pick up that giant piece of onion there. And we're just going to saute these until our mushrooms have gone to about half the size that they started at. Okay, now that our mushrooms are cooked down with everything else, I am going to add about a 1/4 cup of pecans. I love adding any sort of nut to stuffing. It gives it a really lovely crunch, and the texture just goes great with the kind of the mushiness of the stuffing. Then to that, I am going to add a cube of, this is not chicken bouillon, just one whole cube. You can use vegetable bouillon, vegetable broth, whatever works best for you. I like this not chicken because it adds a lot more of those poultry seasonings, so you get a little bit more authentic of a stuffing flavor without having to do the turkey or the chicken. So I'm just mushing that all together, kind of smooshing the cube in there, getting it all around, and we're going to actually use a cup of water to deglaze the pan to get all those yummy vegetable and broth bits off the bottom. So don't worry if it sticks a bit, it's going to come right up when you add the water. And there's our cup of water. As you can see, it comes right off the bottom once we add that. We're getting all those bits, all the good flavor bits into our stuffing mixture. And once we're nice and mixed in, I'm just going to add in my cubes like so and toss everything together until all that liquid has been soaked up by the breadcrumbs. Okay, at this point we have a couple different options. If you are making this day of, all you need to do is put it in an oven safe bowl or pan, throw it in the oven at 300 to keep it warm. All the flavors are going to meld even more and they're going to absorb into those croutons and it's going to be delicious, obviously. But if you want to make it the day before, you can do the same thing. Toss them together, put them in an oven safe bowl, wrap it tightly, and then that day of, about an hour before you want to eat them, throw it in the oven at about 325 and let it slowly warm up and get those juices going and melding together, and it will be just as fabulous. I think stuffing is kind of like spaghetti. It gets better the longer it sits as far as flavors go. So either way, win-win. Once we have got our stuffing ready and everything's absorbed and it's been in the oven for a little while, the way that I love to top my stuffing is with more pecans, and because it's pomegranate season, some pomegranates, it gives it just a perfect little snap and sweetness. Promise you're gonna love this stuffing recipe. Okay, next up we have the most simple cranberry sauce recipe that is delicious and it'll make your house smell fantastic. And on top of that, you can make it in advance. So I've got 12 ounces of fresh cranberries in a medium saucepan here. And to that, I am going to add the zest and juice of one orange. I believe I used a navel orange for this. So I'm just gonna zest it with my little zester here. Get some nice ribbons of orange flavor. It ends up being probably about I'd say about a teaspoon of zest here. A little tip, the white part of citrus is called the pith, the white part in the rind, and that's where you get bitterness from. So if you can, try to just get that juicy, oily orange part. That's gonna give you some really wonderful flavor there. So we got that in there, and then we're just gonna juice that orange as well. Okay, now that we've got our orange juiced into there, I'm going to plop in a cinnamon stick. And this ingredient is definitely optional. If you want a brighter cranberry sauce, I'd go without. If you want some like really interesting richness, the cinnamon stick really gives it that, it's like almost like pastry, wassely flavor, which is delicious with stuffing if you ask me. So I did a cinnamon stick this year. I'm also going to add in some coconut sugar, and one of the things, I've said this before, that I love about coconut sugar, it's very low glycemic, if I could spit that out, and it doesn't spike your blood sugar as much, and it also doesn't make the sauce too sweet, because we all know that, you know, those canned cranberries, they have their place, they're good, but they're so sweet. This is going to be a really even, slightly sweet, really rich cranberry sauce. So I'm adding a cup of water as well, and now I'm just going to simmer this on low heat until it starts to kind of macerate and break down a little bit. Then we can just throw it in a bowl, cover it with some saran wrap, and it'll be ready to go. You can serve it hot or cold, whatever you prefer. Here we have it. I truly think that cranberry sauce is one of the most underrated Thanksgiving side dishes, in my opinion. And speaking of side dishes, we're moving on to our final side dish here. This is our super simple stuffed portobello mushroom. So I've got these baby bello portobello mushrooms here that were actually on sale at Smith's, and I'm just popping off the stem here and trimming those edges so we have just a little bit more of a cup to work with, something to put our stuffing into. And just like our stuffing mixture that we made, I've got equal parts onions, carrots, and celery, and then I just chopped up all the stems from the mushrooms that we removed, as well as 2 more whole mushrooms, just so we got some of the caps in there. We're just going to cook them until everything is cooked down to about half the size. Okay, while our veggies are cooking down here, I am going to get our breadcrumb mixture going. So I actually just reserved a couple pieces of bread cubed from my gluten-free bread loaf and dried those out the same way I did with the stuffing, except for I didn't add any olive oil or seasoning. I just dried them as cubes. You can also use stuffing mix or buy panko or breadcrumbs at the store. But like I said, I just like knowing exactly what's in it. So I've got these dried out, and I'm adding them to my Vitamix here, and I've also got some vegan mozzarella. You can use vegan Parmesan as well. I like this mozzarella because it gets a little bit melty. To that I'm going to add some garlic powder and thyme and pepper. Then I'm just going to pulse them until we have some cheesy, garlicky, yummy breadcrumbs that we're going to add to our veggies. So now we're just tossing those breadcrumbs and veggies together, and the breadcrumbs are just going to start absorbing all that yummy liquid. We're going to spoon them into our mushroom caps here, and like the stuffing, we've got a couple of options. You can toss them right into the oven at 350 for 25 minutes, or the way that I did it this time, I've got it on an oven-safe dish here. I filled my mushrooms, covered them, and left them in the fridge overnight, and then I baked them fresh the next day, again at 350 for about 25 minutes until our mushrooms are tender, and they're nice and delicious and tender, and the flavor is amazing. That mushroom flavor that comes out when you cook mushrooms, that juice just gets absorbed right into the stuffing mix that's inside, and it gets nice and crispy on the outside. And let me tell you, my kitchen smells amazing when these are cooking as well. So I hope that you love these recipes. This one especially is fabulous for vegans and non-vegans alike. Everybody loves it. There's something really meaty about a portobello mushroom, so it's quite satisfying. I think you're gonna love it. I believe I've probably talked way longer than you wanted me to, but I hope that you give one or all of these recipes a try. I promise they're gonna be a hit. Let me know what you think. I hope you're having a terrific holiday season. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.